7? It is. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we will open up this hearing. I have to remind everybody, give them a notification. The hearing is being recorded in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access. I will reintroduce the board members. Lisa Normandin is our board secretary. I'm Al Gravel, James Bezikoski, Hans Winthrop, Paul Doherty, and Sheila Lumi. I will also just remind everybody that this is a continuance from September 13th. Lisa will not be reading the petition because it's already been read. This is a continuance. But I will just review what we're here for. The subject of the case is Robert Berry, 191 Cross Road. The petitioner is seeking a special permit for a dimensional variation to install a 23.04 kilowatt ground-mounted solar array on an 8.2 acre parcel. Under the requirements, it is required 20 acre lot. And it was continued because the board had requested additional information from the applicant. We had asked for a plot plan. We had asked for some lot line, the setbacks, and buffer zones to abutters, and the size and length of the actual layout of the array. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, very good. I do know that you sent in a revision to the plan going from 5 to 3. So I would welcome you at this time if you would like to come up and review that.
Good evening. Thank you again for taking your time to hear us. Actually, we went from 6 to 3, but you're right, we did. So one of the major concerns we were hearing last week was a concern for the width of the whole array from end to end. So what we did, and I'll let the engineer speak to this in more detail in a minute, but what we did was we reduced that footprint by slightly increasing the height of the array. And you have with you now the plans that show the location on the lot and the location and the lines. In addition to that, which we didn't have an opportunity to provide you with ahead of time, we do have some Google SketchUp's 3D renderings of what we think the view will be from various points on the abutter's property. That was a second thing that I think the board wanted to see, is what the view might be. So we do have that with us, and we're going to try to project it on here for you to see. But I'm going to turn it over to the engineers to address all the changes that were made.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, at the end, I will also open it back up to the public to have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Sitting that way is the best ever, Joe. My portfolio's next to you there. That's all right. So this is
is just CAD drawing. So Mr. Bill was correct to say that we reduced the size of the system as far as number of trackers.
Please. And again, you have to give your name and address.
Alan Robertson. I live at 44 Merrimack Street in Haverhill, Massachusetts. All right, so as I was saying, Mr. Bowen was correct to assume that we reduced the size of the system from 6 trackers to 3 to get them behind the existing trees so they would not be as visible. So as you can see here, there's 3, and all of which the drawings I provided show they're within the setbacks. What I was asked to provide was exact dimensions from where the trackers were, and not just the fact that they are within those setbacks. And I have those as well, which I'll pull up in here. Zoom this in. All right, let's see if this works. If I just place it there. Perfect. All right, so as you can see here, we've got the easternmost array, and if I zoom in, it's the 202 feet 2 inches that I listed on the original drawings I provided last week. We've got the westernmost array, which is 200 feet on the nose. And then I did all 3 of the arrays to the south property line. And the original land survey was done by the land surveyor company that I provided last week. So you can see here we've got 202, 5 inches, 210, 2 inches, and 217, 10 inches. So those were the setbacks that I was requested to provide. And the other bit of information we did provide, which I didn't have enough time to send through, was the 3-dimensional images, which actually I've got right here. So basically what I tried to do is figure out what the view would look like from the southern abutters property. So what I did is here's a zoomed out image. You can see sort of the image of a house here. That's the abutter's home. I put a person, which you'll see once I zoom in here, right here on the easternmost section of the house, and right here on the westernmost section of the house, and did an eye-level view up the hill. I could have put 2 lines of trees in. I just put the farther line of trees. If I would have put them both in, it'd just be a little more obstructed. So that's where I put the people. So they're to scale people. I think the person's 6 foot tall. That person over there in the driveway. This is from the easternmost side of the property. So that would be this fellow here. And from eyesight, there is a tracker. The easternmost tracker is behind these trees here, and the middle tracker is behind those trees there, and the western one is also obstructed. The westernmost tracker is viewed here, and from the driveway, you'll be able to see the westernmost tracker there. The middle and the easternmost will be obscured from vision from this tree line. What I also did is I just made this hover about another few feet off the ground just to show it would be if it was 23 feet in the air, just to see what it would look like, but really doesn't change the view much at all. Actually, all the trackers I made a little taller, about 22 feet. And there we have it. So I think the other bit of information that was asked of me was what's the distance from the easternmost to the westernmost. Each individual array, I believe, was 48 feet 6 inches, so that puts it at 97 feet from the easternmost to the westernmost. The other information that was asked of me is to provide some sort of clarity about how often these things would be standing at their tallest, the 20-foot mark. I called the manufacturer. Luckily enough, they had another installation of this nature in Leominster, so not too far from here. From early December to exactly February 13th, it was at its highest pitch, so that's 20-foot mark. And I was also asked to see how often it would be directly south, and it's directly south it's within 20 degrees of due south, so 10 degrees prior to due south and 10 degrees after due south for 45 minutes a day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have any questions for the board at this time?
Excuse me. I do, Mr. Chairman. So with the reduced arrays, you're going from how many kilowatts to how many kilowatts?
The system size stays the same, so it's just more panels on one array. So we can squeeze them together because they don't have to be spaced as far apart.
All right, but you're still going to generate the same amount of power?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions?
If you extended the tree line a little bit so that it would shade or cover that, would that impede the reception on the solar panels?
If the trees were placed at the exact placement of the existing trees, no.
Thank you.
Okay. So the length of the array now is 98 feet,
Yes.
11 inches?
It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be, they're 48 feet, 6 inches apart from each other. So that together would be 97 feet on the nose, from the easternmost to the westernmost.
Okay. And I actually did visit the property again and saw, where he had changed it to the 3. And I will agree that all but that one is behind the tree line. And the reason that I wanted the property lines and distances was because I was thinking that you could, if you moved it a little bit more towards that side, you could cover them all. But you can't do that because then you would encroach on the side yard.
Exactly. And to give you a little more color, we could theoretically put them closer together so they're all behind the tree line. But unlike the trees being planted at where the existing trees are, they would end up shading each other. So it makes the finances of going solar altogether not feasible anymore because they'd be shading, each tracker would be shading the tracker next to it. So pretty much where they're placed right now is actually a little bit closer together than I'd like them to be.
Yeah.
But if we could put them any closer, it makes the whole project somewhat unfeasible.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I think you've provided us with the additional information and presentation on the sightlines. So with that, if there's no more questions, I will actually ask for a motion. I'm sorry, I have to have public comment. Would anybody from the public like to come up and speak? If you do, give your name and address all questions to the board, please. Nobody? Okay, thank you. With that, I will open it up to the board and request a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the permit to allow these reduced structures and the positioning as close to what's given as possible, with the possible provision that 2 smaller trees be placed in to try to shield that also.
Okay, I will just remind, this is a dimensional variation, so the only thing that we are doing is the,
Dimensional variation.
yeah, right, which is
Okay.
just the acreage.
Right.
We're not, the side yards, all of that are going to.
Are approved.
We're not
Within limits.
within limits, but we're still not even addressing, we're giving any
Right.
permission for anything close. With that, I'd ask for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have
Aye.
just comment on that?
Yes.
Just, so I think I have an issue with the fact that they only have 8.5 acres on a 20-acre minimum. And so the issue, I think the issue I have is twofold. One, I think we're setting a precedent by granting it.
It doesn't set a precedent.
And two, I think, they're less than 50% of the acreage needed for it. And I think that the bylaw, if I interpret the bylaw, I think it goes against the intent of the bylaw. I understand that the applicant has, a financial interest in it, but I also think that the bylaw was put in place for a reason. And I think, 50%, less than 50%, I could see maybe 90%. But I have a problem with the fact that it's less than 50%.
I just comment relative to that. My neighbor has a little over 1.5 acres of land, And he has something almost 3 times the size of that in my backyard. And we approved that a year ago.
And I'm sorry, so what was that again?
My neighbor has almost 3 times the size of his electric panels. He's got 84 panels, and he's got just a little over an acre of land.
Is it considered a large
Yes, it
photovoltaic?
is. It came before us, it went before the planning board, it was approved. He's got 3 separate fixed panels. I forget how big they are. And we approved it. So, those considerations, you know, looking at his electric bill, there's a lot of similarities. Pool, no outside sheds or anything else like that. So if we're not setting a precedent, there's already been a precedent, and his was
Well,
not even,
I just want to comment. It would
Sorry.
not set a precedent no matter what, because each case is decided on that
merits.
particular property. Every property, every topography is different. So what might be appropriate at one location, and, you know, it's, in this case, it's got all the side yards, it has a buffer, you know, so it may be appropriate at this location. There might be somebody that comes in that has 15 acres of land, and it's not appropriate. So each case has to be decided on its own merits.
Well, and I think we decide every case on their own merit.
Correct.
The current,
I'm
the
just saying
concern,
it
yeah,
doesn't-
no, I understand, but the concerns I have here are the fact that I think it devalues the property land, the property of the abutters, and I also think that it's not an appropriate place, given the fact that it's only 8.5 acres on a 20-acre minimum. So those are my
Okay.
thoughts.
Again, I will just read findings. I'm sure you're familiar with the findings, but what we're looking at,
So let me ask you this. I know that we're only addressing the dimensional variation
Correct.
on the acreage,
on acreage.
but can you put conditions on that, or is that the planning board has to do that?
The planning board is the special permit granting authority, not the zoning.
Okay.
board. So they will put on whatever conditions they see fit, and they may not even approve it.
Right.
That's strictly up to them. All we're looking at is exactly what you're saying, the amount of land versus what the
Right.
zoning calls for.
Okay.
So, I take your point.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've been, myself personally, fairly consistent when it comes to these citing in a residential area of less than 20 acres. I just can't vote for it myself personally. That's just my interpretation of the bylaws. Says you need 20 acres in a residential neighborhood. To my way of thinking, you need 20 acres.
Well, the zoning board, just to remind you, the zoning board of appeals is just for that, is to give relief.
Oh, no, I understand that, but I choose
I
not to
know,
vote
I know.
to
I'm
give
just
relief.
reminding you that that's what we're here for.
Right, right. I didn't write the bylaw that made it come before us instead of just going directly to
Exactly.
the, the board, the planning board, but since it is here, I can't vote for it, Mr. Chairman.
I will remind the audience too, that we need a supermajority. You need 4 out of 5. We are in deliberation, but I will allow you to speak if it's brief.
I appreciate it. I just want to address the concern that I'm hearing from the board relative to the size of the lot. And I hear it. There was a reason why 20 acres was selected. I think in our first meeting, I suggested that our partial understanding of that was the size of these systems were very different. But I think what they're trying to get at in the bylaw is if you're going to put in a massive array system like a commercial project that's going in other parts of town or that's proposed now on Northfield Road, they don't want you siting a whole field of solar panels on a little postage stamp parcel. I get that. This is not that, and as the chairman has said, every property has to be considered on its own merits. Two of these are not even visible from the abutters, and the single one that is visible, you can, or the planning board can address with a condition of cover. For that matter, if it was just that array that was being built, interestingly enough, the size of the system would be smaller and a variance wouldn't be required to put that single array in that spot. Not what I'm suggesting we do, but I'm just urging the board to look at this property on its merits, and 8 acres is not small. I grant you, it is less than 50% of the 20 acres, but two of these things are invisible. So I just ask the board to consider this piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back. What's that?
It's fine,
It's-
it's fine. You can, maybe you can explain the appeal process if this is going the other way.
No, yeah, I mean, that's why I called for public
Yeah.
comment. We're into deliberations
I
now.
wanted to respond to this gentleman's comments. That's all.
What's that?
I would like to respond to his comment.
I will let you do that. Since we have not done a vote, they went into discussion, so I will allow it.
720 Leominster Road, just with regards with the comment of the line of sight, that it not being visible. The restrictions shown in that plan are limited to the footprint of my house. My yard is 3 times the size of that in the backyard. I can see every one of these arrays from a given point in my backyard, every single one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have his name?
I know, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And since I allowed that, I will allow anyone else to speak that wants to. Yes?
Susan Rowe, 710 Leominster Road. Just had a question about the math, because if there's 48 and a half feet between the trackers, and I think the trackers are each 20 feet wide, then you add another 40 feet to the size of the array, and that brings it beyond what the buffer zone is to the east, which is where I am.
I think what it is this post, and then they go out, so it doesn't,
No, it says 48.6
what's that?
feet between the trackers. So if that's between the trackers, each tracker is another 21 feet wide, which would add 40.
Ask him to come up, the engineer.
They're not.
Um,
No, it's not that much between.
Yeah, center to each
Okay, so it's
side.
another 10 feet on each side.
The,
Center to center is 48 feet. So it's another 10 feet on each side. So if it's another 10
come up.
feet to the east, then you're.
you have to address everything to the board,
Okay.
and then he would have to address it through the board as well.
Okay,
You
so if it's
can't have
another
a
10
discussion.
feet on each side, and it's only 202 feet to the east,
Okay.
that cuts it
And
in
I will
less
let
than
the
that
engineer
200
just
foot corner,
clarify
right?
that,
Okay, thank
if
you.
you would, please.
So the trackers' distance from each other are 48 feet 6 inches. So that's from the center of one to the center of the other. The other math I provided was the distance from the tracker to the property lines. So those shouldn't be confused together. So the array is 97 feet wide from center of one to center of the other. If you want to talk about the array as far as its width from the easternmost point to westernmost point, you'd have to add 20 feet. So I guess it'd be 115 feet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Your point is taken. Okay, so I am going back into the board. I cut off all the public. And we do have a motion. We went into discussion, so unless anybody else would like to discuss anything, I will go back to the vote. So actually, you didn't really vote because you went into discussion, so,
Any more discussion?
there is a motion to grant. It was seconded. So I'll take the vote again.
Aye.
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 No.
No.
Okay, and with that, it's not granted. You need 4 out of 5.
Do we have anything else?
Nope.
The only thing I'm gonna suggest, we do have a couple of applications for another alternate.
Oh,
There
Okay.
was the gentleman that, if you remember, came in, and he was still on another board.
right, he was here one night, yeah.
We haven't heard back from him, so I asked Lisa to contact him to see if he's still interested in. And then there was another one, about a week ago from some, I don't remember her name,
Me either. They had a, what do you call it?
Job Ben.
They had a thing at the Stillman Fair, the selectmen had a
Oh.
talent bank thing.
Oh, okay.
Had a table there.
Right,
She
cool.
had filled out, so I don't know if we want to just see the other gentleman's interest first, or.
Well, I think we need two, right? Don't we need two alternates?
Two alternates?
Well, you got Dave.
Yeah, but we usually have three.
Do we have three? Just two?
We had 8. So we had 5 people and 3,
Yeah.
5 regular members and 3
three
alternates.
So you need another regular member and an alternate.
Oh, so you didn't become a regular member?
No?
Oh. So we only have 4 regulars and 2
Right.
alternates.
I thought you went on to the board.
She hasn't been appointed yet, I don't think.
No, but
Yeah, I
she
haven't
did-
been appointed.
She has to,
She
you
has
have to
to
fill out the,
Well-
Fill out a job bank and go before the selectmen.
Yeah.
Well, they're
I'm
not gonna
check
call
on
you
that,
before,
too.
you just gotta fill out the job.
I did.
That's all I had to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they didn't make me go to a meeting, they just appointed me.
yeah,
Because
okay.
at the,
I'll do it if it makes life.
Well, it's up to you, I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
your decision, so you can do whatever.
Well, I just hadn't looked into the process until
Yeah, it was when I became
wanted
a
to know what
regular.
everybody was doing.
All right,
Yeah.
I don't know if it is
Yeah.
or it isn't, I just want to make sure it's done right.
yeah.
But if they always
You
had.
don't
it,
get a
it's
pay
fine.
raise or anything, so.
Well, that's a good question then. When they come again, you just have to make an appointment.
Yeah, okay.
Should we also discuss the meeting coming up on the 10th? I'm not going to be able to go with the selectmen.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, if we all go, we have to post it.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not
We
planning
have
on
to
going.
know
I mean,
whether we're all gonna go. How many is the quorum that we have to post?
do we want to adjourn and then continue, or do we want to,
Yeah, we can adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.